I want to move on to 2022 as well. And I think actually generally, what I have written here for this one is like stagnation. Like I feel like 2022 was very much a year where like nothing new really happened for like anyone almost, because it was just one of those years where it's like, well, we're kind of coming out of COVID, but we're not really. Like we're doing some studio stuff, but there's definitely nothing international on the card still. And like some big events are starting to come back. We'll get to DreamHack in a second, but probably the most exciting event that we actually did in 2022 up to that point was like remember the Rivalry Insanely Awesome CSGO tournament where we went down for the Order studio, and like we did that. That was like in January or something. And then you did like Fortress Oast Masters as well, which was the Blast thing. There was like a few domestic things kind of popping up here and there.
Yeah, we also like that year was like it was good because it was back to studio for LCO, and back to studio for ANZ Champs as well. But it was really defeating without anything to look forward to.
Yeah.
It's like where's
the motivation?
Like is this the top of the Ivory Tower? Is this the top of the mountain? Like
it is the top of the Ivory Tower, believe it or not.
Just like, what do we do now? Even like CS felt like it was sort of backing off a bit because we lost all those cool like ESL Pro League B streams, all the Cologne B streams, which in turn lost a lot of like general money coming out of Counter Strike for us. So that was a bit disheartening. Like I'm not doing it for the money, but like you need money. You need money to live. Yeah. Especially with the fucking cost of living going up like crazy. Yep. As it was. And yeah, it was just a year that brought up a lot of questions. Like I think I was like actively asking at points to different ESL Australia people who, again, back to that point of like trying to get the answer for the thing I don't know the answer to is like, how the fuck do I like get overseas work? How do I get out of Australia? Like, it's like, who do you at least know who the right people are? Like asking all this stuff. And I remember there was a point where I think like even Gunny in one of our meetings like laughed when I asked about it. And I was just like, what the fuck are you laughing? Like, like I didn't say that, but in my head I was like, why are you laughing? I'm not fucking joking. Like I want to.
This is your career. You want to try to make it. Yeah.
I'm not just here to keep on doing these like local shows. Like I'm happy with the local shows. I will do them because it's part of the job. But I'm like, this is also like post Simon and stuff. So I'm very actively like, I want to move forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
You don't want to stagnate. Yeah. You don't want to be doing the same thing over and over again.
And that's what the year felt like.
Yeah, it did feel like that. I mean, definitely for me as well. And in fact, like the last few years really have felt like that. Obviously, ever since COVID kind of, I think to an extent, actually this year for me, even, and we'll get to you as well, like it has been better, definitely in that direction. Yeah. But
it was just like a lack of anything to look forward to with the IEMs just constantly getting like, if we roll it back, it's like 2019 got on IEM, 2020 IEM was announced, 2021 IEM was announced, but they had to be cancelled because of COVID.
Yeah.
But that's like what you're looking forward to. You're just like, oh yeah, it's not going to be cancelled.
This
like,
is what I'm working toward.
Yeah. In a little bit of a denial, just saying like, COVID's not that bad. Like it'll get better. It'll fuck off. And we'll get this fucking arena show that I've been waiting for 2 fucking years now, 3 years now.
Yeah. Well, obviously you did get that in 2022, right? DreamHack Melbourne comes around and the first thing is like, I want to talk to you about like how you felt about kind of getting the news that you were working it. It took a long time, obviously, for that to kind of be locked in, and we had the back and forth of are we working it? Are we not working it? Are we going to Sweden to work it? Are we, going to be like, who knows what are we doing? The first thing was, are we even working it? Which no one really could seem to tell us. So what was your experience like with that? Were you feeling a bit shit?
It was like once it was sort of announced that it was going to be in Melbourne, I was like generally I was feeling shit, but like once it was announced it was going to be in Melbourne, I was like, there's no way that like we're going to miss out on this, right? And I also had like some ties with Jacko, who was the project manager at that point of ESL Challenger, because he used to work for ESEA and I did a lot of work with ESEA. So I'd reached out to him and just sort of like started asking questions like, what's going on? Like, do you like know what's going on with the talent? Do you need help knowing what's going on with the talent? Because obviously you haven't come to Australia before. Like, is it going to be like on site? Is it going to be not on site? Like just asking all these questions, and I can only get like so much out of him because he can only tell you so much, right? But just like reaching out to it filled me with like a decent amount of confidence that we should be on it. There was no confirmation, but it was like, it sounds like you guys should be on it. That was also at the point where I think we were supposed to fly to Sweden.
Stockholm, yeah.
Stockholm?
Pretty sure.
Sweden. So Stockholm to do an Australian show from Europe externally overnight. Because ESL had made a studio over there that was specifically for like all the Challenger broadcasts. Yeah. So they were like, we need, like, you make something, you want to use it, right? So they were trying to like make that happen. But with all things like CSGO in Australia, because ESL Australia exists and has this extra capacity, it seemed to be more shifting.
Yeah.
And people behind the scenes like pushing it more towards like being an in-arena thing, which ended up working really well for the most part. I think there were some things like the online experience suffered from it because there's like, even going back and getting those clips and just listening to the fucking audio delay.
But it would have been delayed anyway, I think, regardless. Although they might have been able to sync it up.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
you know, you should be able to sync it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, like, theoretically, there should be like a way where it...
I think the thing is, you could have almost gone half and half, where the arena was like maybe like half a second early.
Yeah.
The casting was like half a second early for the casting in the arena, and then it could have been like half a second delayed on the stream, because like what actually ended up happening was like it was live in the arena. As we said the word, it came out of our mouth, it went out the speaker. And I think it might have been a bit weird for us, obviously, hearing it delayed, jarring. But like you might have been able to turn up your in-ear audio enough that it could have been okay.
I think I had mine maxed out anyway.
There might have been a world where it was a little bit early in the arena, and it wouldn't have, because whenever you see something on the screen, it inherently takes time for your brain to process it, to say the word.
Yeah.
Oh, he gets the kill or whatever. It might actually have lined up kind of okay in that sense if they would have just bumped it forward. Anyway, I don't know how it all works, the tech, but I think there might have been a world where you could have gone a little bit early in the arena, and it would have helped the delay on the stream be not as bad. But
yeah.
Anyway, besides that point, look, I mean, obviously, we got that job eventually, and that was your first time doing an arena show. And also, in addition to that, you had to sort of juggle this LCO thing as well. So what ended up happening there? Did you not do LCO that year?
Yeah, I ended up going... I think I got given the choice.
Right.
Because they were trying to... Yeah, I think what it ended up coming down to was like what I'm more valuable on. Yeah. And I ended up being more valuable.
They got Overly to do LCO, I remember.
Yeah. Which ended up being like a way for them to try to like sell more tickets, because Overly is a big brand in league for people that watch any overseas stuff. So she came over and did the hosting for that, and like she fit in perfectly fine. Everyone else was happy doing their thing, and that meant I got to cast like every day of Challenger.
Yep.
It was changed into the next year, but that's like 6 months later. But yeah, once I got onto the CS thing, I was like super happy, because it was like my first arena event. Like, arena, like not big arena, but like pretty big arena.
It's still pretty big arena.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty big.
About as big as you're going to get in ANZ without IEM existing, which at the time we didn't know that IEM was going to be a thing again.
Yeah, IEM was fully gone. But yeah, I just remember being on it, like... I was just shitting myself before that first time we walked out. Really? I think it was me and Jim on the first game.
Yep.
And it was as like there was no one in the arena, or like people were trickling into the arena. But I was also just thinking like there was definitely some kind of performance anxiety where I was just like, fuck, like how's this going to go, whatever. And then as soon as like the arena was just like a little bit full, I think we started with like a tech pause or something. And I was like, well, anyway, how's everyone feeling or whatever? Just talking like essentially like it was Twitch chat, but real. Like without saying chat, how you doing or whatever. And then everyone was like, yeah. And then as soon as they like all erupted, which was only like one of those sections of seating at that point, like it was really not at full because it was super early. I was just like, oh, all the nerves just like went away. And then I was just able to do whatever, and started to do more crowd work, got more confident with it, barked or whatever. I wooed, did some weird shit. It was fun.
Did Mac things.
Just did
general.
Mac things, yeah.
Yeah, and it worked out okay.
Yeah.
Everything worked out fine. Then we can jump forward to 2023, which I have described as a breakout year. I feel like obviously the year's not done yet, but this is kind of the first year where you've gone from... Well, actually, maybe that's not true. Like the first year that you casted with Gfinity ESL, that was quite a bit of a breakout year, I think, for you as well. But that was more of a domestic thing. And now it's like you're breaking out in a different sense, that you're doing a lot of these bigger shows, these more important shows. You're getting those opportunities that you've been grinding for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And obviously, as the year is still developing, I'm sure there's still things that might still cap off the year, but there's been a lot. You've done a lot in this year. The first thing, obviously, was that you gave up the LCO, so there's that conversation to be had, but you obviously went to Mongolia for the Asia RMR.
Yeah.
You did...
I did the first split of LCO. I just had to give it up for the second.
Yeah. Anyway, you went to Mongolia, you did you did ESL Challenger Melbourne again, which was another Dreamhack event. You did the Road to Asia Games in Macau. You did the VCT Ascension hosting, that was in Thailand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then... ESL Pro League in Malta, so you've been overseas quite a lot, and then IEM Sydney is coming. don't know what's happening there, but
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed for that one,
Yep.
obviously. That would be a really nice capstone for the year for you, I think. And so, I mean, I think the first thing that I want to touch on there, and, you know, obviously you did the first season of LCO, whatever. I want to actually talk to you about, well, actually, I think I want to talk to you about Dreamhack Melbourne first, because this did involve LCO. So before we talk about you leaving LCO and why you did that, let's talk about Dreamhack Melbourne and Mongolia, I guess, to an extent. That was prior to that as well. So first of all, I guess let's go to Mongolia if we just want to follow the actual timeline, because we went to Mongolia before we did Melbourne, right?
I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure
Probably.
that's how it went. So what was that like? Obviously, you got... I remember how you got this job because I reached out to Blast and I sort of said, hey, I want to really be involved in the Asia RMR. Like, Asian Counter Strike's like, I almost feel like that's my thing. You know, like, I love Counter Strike in ANZ. I like watching international Counter Strike, but I don't know what it is about Asian Counter Strike, but there's something about it that just tickles my pickle, you know?
I know.
And so I was
can tell.
I said to them, I'm like, guys, I don't know if you know, but I really like Asian Counter Strike. I want to do this show. I did the last one, but didn't really feel like it. You know, like doing a Asia RMR in Melbourne with ESL Australia, it just felt like any other event for me kind of thing.
Yeah.
This was different though. This was like, we went overseas. There was 8 teams there. It was LAN. We were casting with people who'd never worked before. This kind of stuff. It was like really...
That's right. Before that, we also did the RMR in Melbourne.
Yep.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just forget that was actually an RMR. That was the first minor that I ever worked.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like it. So we reached out to Blast, and, you know, you got brought up as well. And how did you feel about getting that job? Because, like, to me, that felt like a really big moment for me, actually. That felt like, I've actually genuinely deserved this job.
Yeah.
Versus some... Not that I don't deserve the jobs with ESL Australia, but, like, some of them just feel like a bit of a given. It's like, they've got a Asia RMR in Melbourne. It's like, well, we're gonna be the ones to do it. Like, there's no question. But now I'm like, okay, I am on the circuit.
It was the international shot, right? It's like the thing that we've been fucking asking for or waiting for, like, I'd been waiting for at least for a long time. Like, going to Malaysia, going to Indonesia, but still to do just like the local
this was your first overseas job as well.
So this is the first overseas job that was like a LAN overseas. It wasn't just a studio broadcast overseas because we ran out of space back here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was when I got that email. I think I just like cheered and then told Jess, and we were both really happy. Pico was probably really happy, but didn't know she'd have to not see me for a week or so. And yeah, that was it was a good moment. It was also just like Mongolia, huh?
Yeah.
Where the fuck's Mongolia?
Never thought we'd end up in Mongolia.
I had a look at where it was, and I was just like, oh shit, that's smack bang between China and Russia. That's a place.
Yeah.
That's fuck. And then it like looks small, and then you compare how big it actually is. I'm like, whoa, Mongolia is huge, man. So it was, a big experience. Just even getting ready for that, being like, how's this gonna work? And at least like it was also like we'd casted like a little bit together, like we did the RMR before, and just sort of like figuring out the dynamic. But for the most part, like we hadn't duoed heaps.
Yeah.
So we like, I don't know, it felt pretty good when we were in Melbourne, and then it felt pretty good when we were overseas. But we just had...
I think that was just a follow-on from doing the tri-casts, honestly.
Yeah.
And understanding how one another worked kind of thing. I felt like it was completely natural for me. Like, I didn't really give it a second thought, honestly.
Yeah. The thing for me is just like, it even happened when I was over at Malta too. It's just like when you jump around roles a lot, like your wires get crossed a little bit, and then you make like a couple of mistakes when you go from like, yo, I'm play-by-play to, you're color now. And it's like, oh, well, you're in between. And like, I think for us, it's fine because no matter what happens, it's like you sort of jump into the other one.
Someone can cover whatever role is needed at the time.
And it works really well. But there's like, a point overseas at Malta where like there was a point where I tried to do that with Dinko for a little bit. But Dinko was like hard play-by-play for the most part.
Right.
So I tried to like bounce in for something, but he was like hanging on. And then I spoke over him for a little bit. I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
I had to like quickly readjust and be like, I guess I'm not fucking doing much play-by-play for this one. And it was just like the little readjustment there, but just like those moments as well just sort of stick in my brain. I'm like, oh, all right, that's right. It's not just like loosey-goosey all the time.
Yeah.
But for this one, it was good. Like I enjoyed it when there wasn't the tech pauses. It was just the confusion.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, what did you think about the criticisms of the event or just the event in general? Like, does it weigh on your mind all that much? Like, I kind of, almost in hindsight, like I still kind of look fondly at the event, you know? And like, obviously they did fuck up, but I think I would still be happy. Like if Misa would get another event, I'd still be happy to do it because I'm pretty confident that normally what happens there is you fuck up the first time
You learn from your mistakes.
you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And then the second time, it's like you're like legit.
Yeah.
So I would almost be very sad that if they don't get another job because of that.
Yeah. Well, they're still running like their local leagues and stuff, I'm pretty sure. So,
Yeah.
They should be getting better. But yeah, I definitely remember. It's a good memory. Just going to Mongolia. I just remember fucking flying in, and it had just snowed. It had been like negative 30 degrees
Whatever,
the night before or whatever, and it was just like a wasteland of snow, and it was just like a land. Because I used to do a lot of landscape photography, but just like seeing that landscape in real life, just being like, this is like surreal, man. It's like being on the moon, and then we just land at this airport in the middle of fucking nowhere with nothing around. Get in a car, start driving 150 kilometers an hour on the highway. When there's snow, like on the road, I'm shitting myself just like, all right, this could be it. And we're just driving into Ulaanbaatar.
I've had a few experiences like that. Like in Indonesia, the first time I went to Indonesia, getting in that fucking taxi, the Bluebird taxi, and the guy just like sending it down the emergency lane.
Yep.
Russia as well, when I went to Russia for some Water Tanks gig. Oh man, I was like, I could just be dead.
Yeah.
And like, I just die in this country where like I don't speak the language and no one knows who the fuck I am.
And we get to Ulaanbaatar and there's just like cars triple parked on the side of the road, cars everywhere. I was just like, what is this? Like I'd been to
Indonesia,
Malaysia. I went to say Mongolia, in Malaysia and Indo, and they were like, all right. They were like, had cars, but they did not have cars like Ulaanbaatar had cars. That was like crazy. And then the hotel was really nice. When I saw the gym, because it was like a public gym linked up with the hotel, that was like, oof, this is good. Like that, if any place I go to has a gym that I can access that has proper equipment and facilities, I'm just, that I don't give a fuck about anything else. I'm happy as long as I can sleep, which we can get into later. That was like a.
Well, you struggled because it was too hot.
No, that one was fine.
That was fine.
Right. In Bangkok, I
because we could open the windows in Mongolia, which is very unusual.
I love that. I opened it. And we're getting negative whatever degrees.
-10 overnight, or
I just open it. I'd be so cold, but I'd be like so warm in the doona that they had the best sleeps. Like I sleep super good in the cold when I'm snug.
Yep.
So that was cool.
We came back. We did Dreamhack Melbourne.
Yep.
And what I wanted to quiz you with here was this was actually the year where you like tossed between LCO and ESL Challenger.
Yeah.
So you had to sort of do 50-50. What was that like, working two events at the same event?
Confusing, but also like the main thing about this one was losing my voice on the first day from Vertex and Rare Atom, a game that should never lose anyone's voice on paper.
Classic.
But Vertex almost causing the upset, dropping the ball. Craziest shit from Kaze, that game. That was crazy. Remember?
Yep.
That was when he went that double no scope over towards sight. I just remember that is the moment I lost my voice because I squealed too loud.
Yeah.
But the crowd was going crazy.
Like, didn't pace yourself.
Nah, didn't pace myself.
Something people don't think about, I think, very much when they're watching casters. But I know for me, especially now as well, I have to really be careful to not go over the top. And that's why people, I think, probably would look at me and go, oh, he's not like a hype caster. Like, I'm not a hype caster, because I'm like, well, I'm needing to maintain this level for however long the event goes for. It's not so bad on 3-day events like Dreamhack, but IEMs, for example, and some of the other events, which we'll talk about here, like the Asia Games in Macau, that was like 8 days in a row or something like that.
Yeah, that was
It's just like, man, even if you're just talking normally on a broadcast, you get to the point where your mouth is just like, I don't want to do that anymore.
It's like, for this one in particular as well, I thought like, cool, I've only got 2 days of casting, so I'll go a little bit harder than I did the previous one, because my throat was fine, or my voice was fine during that first Dreamhack. And the aircon in there was just so fucking
Fog
dry.
machine as well.
Yeah,
fucks with it.
There was a lot going on for your throat, which was not good. Outside air conditioning was cold, right? It was pretty cold in Melbourne that week.
Probably would have been in the middle of the year, just about going into winter.
If it wasn't cold, it was dry. Like, I'm pretty sure it was pretty dry.
I don't think it was hot, put it that way.
Yeah. And there was nothing, no real good conditions for your voice. So lost it on the first day. Also, knowing I was hosting the next day, I was just like, I'm not going to be yelling. Whatever. Like, I might yell a little bit, do some crowd work, but other than that, not too much. And then, jumping into the next day, I just had to be careful of my voice, not go too hard, but still like talk when I needed to on LCO. And I think that went relatively well. I had fun.
Yep.
That's the main thing.
Sleeping skit and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's it, man. Just have some fun. make it interesting. That was also a pretty good grand final. I think it was all 5 maps between Bliss and Chiefs. And Bliss almost caused the upset, but they just like dropped the ball. I think even in the final game was like pretty close until it wasn't. So that was a good little memory. It was also that one. It is different going from working with the same talent that you've worked with almost the whole year, to that point, to then like having like Amelg and Max as like the main analysts, and Amelg, Max,
Kitty,
and Kitty, but Kitty was also like kind of stage
hosting,
host.
yeah.
So she
was interviewing, right? And Hysterics was stage hosting.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Hysterics? Yeah.
Yep.
It was because it was Jake.
Jake the first year.
Yep. Yeah, right. So yeah, Hysterics was at that time. So yeah, Kitty was like interviewer and on the desk the whole time. Yeah, so it was like a lower energy desk, or like a desk that I hadn't like worked with as much, of course, as like the other one. So I'd ask questions and I'd maybe get less. So I'd have to ask more questions, and then there was sometimes we'd have to fill for even longer as well. So it wasn't as easy to do like fun stuff. But yeah, I just remember getting through it. But it was good to be there, because I didn't get to be there as the host for the last LCO finals.
Yeah.
And just like seeing the crowd, talking to the crowd, and doing a little bit of fun stuff live while I could. But then, yeah, after that, we did the grand final, the Challenger, which was cool. That was a good game. But my voice was gone, so I was like super happy for you to fucking do all the play-by-play on that one.
I remember my voice also being a bit not quite there.
Yeah, but it wasn't as bad as mine.
Wasn't as bad.
Yeah, so you could still do more. I was trying to like hype. And that was, I think that happened at another, I lost my voice at Ascension as well, because it come off the back of that league week.
Yep.
Losing your voice, you can still do the broadcast, but if like only have like a certain range you can hit.
Yeah, you can't go,
you go mid
high.
to lows.
Yeah.
You can't do highs, or it's just a snap. It's just like, like, so you have to, if I'm watching Counter Strike and I'm usually reacting genuinely, I'll be like, like, you go up and those sort of sounds. Whereas when you don't have those tones, you have to go, like, and still do what you're trying to do, but just like use a different vocal range, which is like something else that, you guys at home who are watching this probably don't have to think about if you're not a caster. You might not ever have to think about it even if you are a caster, but if you do lose your voice, you can always like growl, you can always go low. It just might not be what you used to. So you're learning how to deal with that on the fly live in front of a crowd and still trying to do a fucking good job.
Sometimes when I'm casting, I'm thinking to myself in my head, I'm like, man, all I wish I was doing right now is not talking. Like, it's one of those things where sometimes you're like, fuck, if there's anything in the world that I want to do right now, it is not this. Because my throat is telling me to stop.
Not only that, but especially an event like, which is an event you don't get to see everyone all the time. You don't get to go to these events all the time. What you're doing outside of work is
talking to people.
For me, at least, I'm trying to network. I'm trying to fucking talk to people. I'm trying to, have those conversations and just constantly talk. And all I needed to do that event was opposite.
It's
just like shut up, suck on your singer's bong, which is a steam inhaler for you guys that don't know. It's like this little device. You might have seen me sucking on it on Twitter once or twice.
On my vlog.
Yeah, on your vlog too. Yeah, go check that out. It'll link in the here. Can you put them anywhere?
It'll be right there.
Right there. There you go. Almost up there somewhere. And yeah, there's things you can do to try to get your voice back, but it's the best thing is just rest. And if you don't rest it, then it's not getting better.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That event was good though. Overall, like working both the events, it was interesting. I had to like bounce between the rehearsals. Not that we really had to do too much rehearsals for CS. It was similar to the time before. And yeah, the only thing was like the different setup from the TV and like having the screens and having the staggered casting was fucking weird. Like
the screens were weird.
Like having even just the table there.
Yeah, it
makes it harder to play off one another's energy because like you're looking this way, I'm behind you. I'd have to physically tap you if I'm like, a throw's coming or whatever. If we're bouncing fast. Yeah. So
I remember that. That was weird.
Yeah.
All right. So after Dreamhack Melbourne, things kind of, I think, sort of pick up the pace a little bit for you. And one of the important decisions that you had to make this year was giving up the LCO, right?
Yeah.
Because the way that I remember it was you were trying to secure the gig in Thailand for Ascension. You were trying to secure the gig in Macau for the League of Legends. And obviously doing both of those really clashed with LCO, so you kind of couldn't do all three. So what
Yeah.
what ended up happening there? Like in your mind, obviously you did end up deciding to give up LCO, but why would you do that? Because I think I remember having this conversation with you at the time, and you were saying, should I do it? Should I keep LCO? What should I try to, whatever, what should I do? And I said to you, I said, oh, look, I mean, it kind of depends on what your mentality wants to be here, right? Do you want to kind of shoot for the stars? Do you want to like really try to make it? In which case, yes, you do have to give up LCO and take these international offers and see where they lead.
Yeah.
Maybe they lead nowhere. Maybe you don't even get them and you've really just fucked yourself. Or do you want to have that stability that LCO would bring? Because in theory, at that point, you don't get taken off LCO anymore, right? You've sort of made your mark. You are the guy. It's pretty good work for however long it is going to go on. So what was going through your mind when you were having to make that decision?
It was just like money, right? Like I'd already mentioned earlier, LCO was very stable money. That was like one of the aspects. It was very stable money for each of the splits. I think it also sort of got cut down a little bit this year. The structure changed.
Yep.
And the structure of the whole thing changed. So we don't get a world spot. We didn't get a world spot anymore. Had to go play through PCS. And so far it's been very bad. Like our teams going over to PCS have not done too well.
Yep.
So
Less
that's
days as well.
Yeah, less days. So the seasons get shortened, and the way that the brackets all work is like slightly different, or groups. I can't remember how it works anymore. It's been like I've gone through too many other broadcasts, and my brain's everywhere. But yeah, it was that, and like keep that as the consistent thing. Keep on doing it, keep on keeping on. Or I think I'd been offered some form of Ascension, whatever that was, as well as the Macau job, which was Road to Asia Games for 2022, even though it's 2023.
Yep.
Because Asia Games 2022 got postponed or something like that. But they didn't change the name, so that is what it is. And then I was like, well, and that was also to cast League of Legends, which I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do too well doing that, or if it's just going to be whatever. And it ended up being a bit whatever, but it also ended up being like, cool experience. Like, I've casted League of Legends now.
Yep.
Did a little bit of work leading up to it. But yeah, he. What was he doing?
I just thought he was chewing on your cable or something because I saw a cable like move or something like that.
Right. I could hear like a click.
Yeah, no,
Don't know what it was.
It's all good.
Anyway, yeah. So I had to make that decision, and then in my head, I'm like, I can't remember when I managed to speak to Joe, because I had a conversation with Joe Miller, who's the main global talent manager from ESL, and he's the guy that like picks all the talent for the bigger products, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was after I made the decision that I got that interview with him, but I was also just like thinking about how to get over to Europe. Like I kind of want to keep going forward in my career. I don't just want to stagnate, which had felt like for like a while. Like we got a couple of Dreamhacks, which was really nice, really good to get in front of crowds.
Yeah.
But it was also like, well, I am Sydney at that point. I don't think it'd been announced. I think it took a while.
Definitely wasn't announced at that point, no.
Yeah, it got announced. I thought it was supposed to be announced like right after Dreamhack.
Yeah, but it took a little bit.
But it took a little bit longer before it actually got announced. Anyway, so this is before it was like fully announced and fully confirmed or whatever. And I was just like, well, that will probably end up like running into something. And like with the second LCO season, if I take that, then that could be missed opportunities. Like I had the offer I think I had almost been confirmed on Ascension. Right. No. Sorry. So what happened was I was trying to do it all, and I would have been able to do LCO if the dates I was given for these events in Asia were right. But they did not include travel days or these other days. So what ended up happening was, instead of me missing just like on paper, if it was the dates I got given, I was only going to miss like 4 days of the LCO season, which would have been like equal to a week and a bit. So could have potentially got like someone to fill on those days, and that would have been fine. But then I did more digging and then found out it was like way more days, including travel and like rehearsal days and off days that weren't fucking included in whatever they said. So, and there was points where they're like, oh, could you potentially travel like 2 days before the event so you can have like this off day and stuff? I'm like, well, no, I can't. Like I'm trying to do this other stuff. ended up being able to do it because I had to like drop the other job anyway, which was LCO. So once I found that out, I had to go back to Tim Carbon and just say, oh, well, like I'm going to miss like half of the regular season. So like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, no worries. Like, and then I just said, if you need me to like train up whoever you pick, whoever you put into the talent role, like the host role, like I'm happy to like give them some tips and stuff. And then they ended up getting Nat because Nat had that availability. So like I didn't end up having to help anyone because Nat knew what she was doing. And yeah, so that played out like that. And then I got to go overseas a few more times. Biggest learning between, going to Macau and then going to Bangkok, there was like 2 days. I came over for 2 days or 3 days or whatever it was, literally to wash my clothes to go back overseas.
We would have got back on like a Tuesday and you got Tuesday morning and I think you left on Wednesday night.
And they're long flights.
Yeah.
And fuck that. Never again. Like I will...
You got to do what you got to do, man. You're
not
not going to say no to those gigs. You say never again, but you're going to do it again if that opportunity
not never
comes.
again with the gigs, never again flying home. Like in hindsight...
You'd go from place to place.
I'd probably just fly from Macau to Bangkok, have a couple of days in Bangkok looking around or like vice versa, stay in Macau, look around Macau more, even though Macau's really small, which we found out. You could literally see...
I'm sure there was stuff you could have done.
How funny was that? We're going across the bridge and I'm looking over. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's China.
Yeah, and I was like, no way.
No way. And then we look on the map. It's like, oh,
that
shit,
is China.
That is China right there. Like
right there.
50 meters across the water.
Yep.
Which you could just swim into.
It sounds ridiculous, I guess, to anyone that's not from Australia, but because we're from Australia, it's like you see water, it's like there's no other country for like 10 hours that way.
Should be.
Or 10 hours that way. Or if you can see, that's Australia still.
Yeah.
But if you can't see it, it's not Australia anymore.
Yeah.
Or if there's nothing there.
It was kind of cool as well, like flying to Malta, like just going over so many countries so quickly because like once you get into that sort of Europe area, like you're like, well, it's Cyprus. Or you can see Italy over there.
Yeah.
Well, wait,
you don't realize how close
Africa,
everything is.
But like Africa's just there too. There's
Yeah.
shit. Like everything's really close. You just don't get it if you're from Australia. Yeah. Like unless you go there.
Nope.
That was another one of those life experiences I don't get unless you
Yep.
sort of go. But yeah, so for that one, we then did League of Legends casting, explored Macau.
Oh yeah.
That was a big week. Ended up losing our voices because the air quality wasn't great.
I had so many ulcers.
That was weird.
I got so many ulcers and I don't know what it was from. But like every moment we were casting was pure agony for me.
Yeah.
It was just pain the whole time. I don't know if you had the same. I feel like you held up a little better than I did.
Yeah. I didn't go as hard though. I sort of went a bit more hard towards the end.
Yeah.
But a thing I've noticed with my casting, especially if I'm trying to play-by-play, is if I'm not super confident, I'll be a little bit quieter.
Yeah.
Like I'll be a little bit quieter or like a little bit slower between my words, trying to not say the wrong thing, just trying to use the right terminology, and my brain will tick a little bit longer. Whereas with CS, right, or Valorant, it's
just do it naturally.
It's just there.
Yeah.
It's just like all the words are already there because I've done so much of it. So
how did you actually find casting League? Was it harder than you thought or easier than you thought? Or
it was as hard as I thought, but it was like some of the games we had to cast were bad League, like is what I got told.
Some of them were awful League.
Is what I got
They didn't
told.
count as League of Legends.
Yeah,
really.
it was like watching a couple of Diamonds play a couple of Challenger players sometimes. So,
it was definitely not even Diamonds at some points. Let me tell you that.
Well, yeah. So the quality of the games wasn't great, which is a great way to sort of start the cast, right?
Yeah.
And I had a lot of concepts that I'd already learnt over the other years, and also like playing with Rusty, talking with Rusty. Rusty was there as well, so
yeah.
And we got to like bounce around. Was it you or me that casted? No, I casted with Magical on the first day.
You casted with Magical the first day, and then you had one day with Rusty. But for the most part, we were casting together. Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny part was on the wiki, when we went over to the wiki, I was labeled as a color caster for the event, and I'm just like, how?
Just because.
Just the way it is.
Okay, well, speaking of that, because since you were the color caster, I felt like it was okay to leave you on your own to do the draft.
Yeah.
There was one point during the show, which maybe you don't even know if you never watched it, and even if you did watch it, you might not know. But I was pretty sick one morning. I had to go to the toilet, and I was like trying to hold it, trying to feel okay, and then obviously the show goes on.
Yeah.
And we're doing our desk segment, and we don't know when we're getting in game. I'm like, man, I really need to go. And I even said to you, I think beforehand, I was like, I'm struggling today.
Yeah.
I kind of need you to talk more so that I don't have to talk. And I was like, I thought I could maybe get through it, but anyway, when it got to the draft, I was like, no, I gotta go because we're off camera at that point.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm out. Sorry, Mac.
Yeah.
Like, and how did you do the draft on your own? How'd you go with that?
It was all right. Just spoke about it, tried to stay on topic, not go too off topic, and just figure out how the team comps and stuff are all going to work.
Just like a good color caster.
Which is it's similar. Like honestly, it's similar in a way where if you go in depth doing draft in like Valorant, it's like 5, but it's also like way less agents to play with than champs, right? But it's just a similar conversation as to how you want to say, okay, well, this team comp's going to work like this. This is how they have to fight for it to work best, when you're looking at the meta, and how it should work on like this map or that map or whatever, even though maps don't exist in League of Legends. It's just Summoner's Rift.
Yep.
So yeah, I did well for what it was. I had a couple of keywords. I don't think the draft that they pulled out was anything too fucking crazy.
No,
whereas
not.
like a couple of the teams were pulling out some crazy shit. And I think one of the first games we casted together, there was some weird champ pick that wasn't meta, but it was like his pocket pick or something.
Tryndamere, I think it was.
Yeah.
Right. It was like a Thailand player or something.
Yeah, right.
Thailand or Malaysia player was playing
At
Tryndamere.
least Trent had been meta since I'd been hosting, so I'd watched a bit of it in LCO, like meta-ish.
Yeah.
I think it was Lived might have done something crazy in top lane one time, and then a few top laners were all playing it on LCO. So I'd seen a bit of it and how it operated, and I also like understood it because Trent is pretty popular around bronze.
Yeah,
so
I can imagine.
I could at least... That's the thing. If there's like... If like a Kled came out competitively, I'd be like, how the fuck does this work? The only person I've ever really seen play Kled is like Turtle.
Kled is a very complicated champion.
I know, but that was just an example, right? Like any champs that's not like isn't
Not
super
meta.
that someone. Yeah, I think there was some Rammus gameplay in there, but the time we watched him play it went bad.
No,
it went real bad. So
yeah, it was a bit of an up and down event, definitely. I mean, couldn't really
I
take it
enjoyed
seriously.
it. The cool thing was the suits.
Yeah,
Like they just had suits there. We came in.
Yeah,
that was the thing. We brought so many. Like I brought so many broadcast clothes, expecting to just wear my broadcast clothes, and then I think I even brought my suit.
Yep,
took my suit jacket. Yep. I was like, I'm going to wear this probably. Depending on the level.
That's very China though. Like if you've ever done an event in China or a Chinese event that's run by like Chinese people and for Chinese people, it's like you go and they dress you and they do your makeup and they do your hair and just like that.
Yeah,
but not really like that on any other show.
It was cool though.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Me too. Then you went to Thailand. Well, you came back to Australia and then you went to Thailand. But was there anything really to touch on with Thailand? Because like again, you're going over and hosting, and as you said, people think, oh, you're just a host now. So
Thailand was the hardest event I've ever done.
Really?
Yep, 100%.
Why is that?
Because I couldn't fucking sleep. Like the humidity was like one thing. The aircon was like okay, but like super fucked in the hotel. I lost my voice the day before or like the day of because after our thing in Macau, like the air quality over there was pretty bad. The constant aircon coming back in the airplane and even more hectic aircon. It's crazy. Tried to like fix my voice while I was here, just like sucking on honey, having teas and just trying to like make sure my voice was as good as possible.
Yeah.
Went back to Bangkok. Air quality is just as bad. Apparently, it was like the best it had been in ages. I saw Cam like Kameen for a little bit, and he was like, "Yeah, the air quality is actually pretty good at the moment." And I was like, "That's good, for what it is." I went to the hotel. Hotel's aircon was like crazy, and I've never spent that long in aircon like in my life. And then my voice was just like almost fully gone, so I couldn't like. It ended up working out with the way that I ended up having to host the event. Is I was like relatively chill for the first bit, and then as my voice was coming back, I could be a bit more me.
Yeah.
But it was the first time I'd ever worked directly with Riot. Like there were Riot people there, and I was like, "What do you want me to do?" And they're like, "You're a professional, you know what to do." And I'm just like, "That's like the worst fucking direction you can give me." Because if you're like, just be yourself or whatever, it's like, I don't know if you want that.
Do you know what you're going to get?
Yeah,
That's
do you
the
know
question.
what you're going to get when you say that? Like,
Yeah.
So this is the thing. Like, I needed to like feel out again that like stay pretty flexible with how everything was going on. That event as well, not only was I getting like no sleep because the bed was super hard, I had to like get an extra padding thing on my bed. It was one of the first times I didn't take my pillow, and the pillows were okay, but it was just how hard the bed was giving me a sore back and waking up every like 3 hours, even with sleeping pills and shit.
That's not it.
And like the days were really long, so when I was done, there wasn't a lot of time to like go and do like cardio or anything. I just sort of have to be like, all right, well, that's it. Go to bed.
Time for sleep.
Yeah. And like, even that's the thing. My intention was to vlog that too. Cause I vlogged Macau, which should be a good vlog if I ever make it. And then I recorded again in Thailand, but I just was in a hotel for 8 days straight hosting and
Yeah,
couldn't
sometimes the
do
content's
anything.
not that interesting.
So it was me. The content is me like going back to my room, and being like, yeah, today was pretty good.
Yeah.
But also when you're around talent that might not necessarily be comfortable with you filming in the green room, and you're spending 90% of your time in the green room. Like I wasn't gonna vlog in the green room too often unless it was like me, Conky, and Dion or something. And,
Yeah.
And that was the other thing is there was a lot of talent there I hadn't ever worked before and didn't really like might not have clicked with on the first day, or like how the desk works. Like a couple of people, the way that they run the desk was like different because they hadn't been analysts before, and it was one of those situations where the casters were also the analysts.
Yeah.
So they're like they've said everything, and then they just have to repeat themselves on the desk, and some people might not have anything else they want to say, and you can sort of get that vibe. So not only was I the host for the event, I was watching in depth pretty much every single fucking game and trying to put on my like analyst pants, which I think I did a really good job of. But then I'd also like take maybe a lot of points from the other guys, but then I'd ask them and say, hey, do you want me to like do more analysis about the game or whatever? It's like, yeah, well, we've just casted, so we're happy for you to do that, for the like most people I spoke to. And the big thing though, even though I was like doing hardcore analysis, which would be like normal shit on a CS broadcast, Riot is just like storylines.
Yeah.
Storylines. Like
Only.
that they're just like, they don't really care about the stats. It's like, we don't want to hear about the stats unless you can like somehow tie that to a storyline.
Okay.
So I just had to find reason. So I think my biggest takeaway from that event, even though like I was just like hosting Valorant, which is a game I would say I'm a caster in, not a host in,
Yep.
Whatever, is that I learned how to storyline and like drive those points or like tie points into what I'm trying to say so much better. So that's what I did that event. And then also stayed on, got like the hotel for the extra couple of days or whatever for the finals, and then worked for, I say pro bono when I mention it. They're like, no, you get like the hotel and stuff. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But,
Not really.
Yeah,
Doesn't really count.
That I'm not.
You're not getting paid.
Yeah, I'm not getting paid.
Yeah.
But I was like doing a couple of things, and I was trying to like push my way into like, yo, I'm gonna, do some extra content. Just like I'm here to work. I'm here to build my brand and do some Asian Valorant stuff, which is not what we get to do. And Valorant is huge in Asia. Like,
Yep.
it was like kind of big during groups, but then when we went to the like playoffs, like that was fully stacked out, and everyone was going crazy for all the teams there. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, pretty good experience for you. Obviously, you come back and then, time goes on. And
Yeah.
the next big thing to obviously talk about is Malta, ESL Pro League Malta, which you were just at. So this is pretty fresh in the memory. This is like the most recent event that you've done.
Yeah.
How was that as an experience? Because like you said, this was like the furthest you've ever gone. It was, 15-hour flight. It was working. I think every other time that you've gone overseas to do a job, you've been with someone. This was the first time you've kind of gone on your own as well. So like, was it good? Was it bad? Was it scary? Was it whatever? What was it like?
Arguably, if we're talking about travel quickly, like Bangkok was the first time I'd had to travel alone,
Right.
like ever.
Yep.
Because and I was just like, oh, am I going to make it? Whatever.
Yeah.
Did I have a stopover? No, I
Shouldn't have not going to Bangkok.
No, I had a straight one to Bangkok, so I didn't have to go and like figure out how to get places and stuff. But when I got there, I was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I think I got there a day later than everyone too. So then I just like had no one to meet up with except for Ariane, who was the talent manager, and then to Malta didn't even have anyone to find there at the thing. But then Malta is also like super teeny, so getting the Uber was not that hard. Like I think I'd also planned ahead and bought the eSIM while I was in Dubai.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, I'm going to do this time so I have Wi-Fi or like 5G, whatever, when I get there. So yeah, I'd learnt like a couple of things leading up to that, and then just like keep it to myself. I think even though it was a longer flight, I knew it was going to be stinking hot once I got there. So I took like my shorts, and I'm glad I took shorts. Getting to Dubai, like drinking water from the airport is literally like 20-degree water or some shit. Like it's gross.
Yep.
But you need to drink water. Like you need to stay hydrated on flights. That's the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just make sure after I've like had my feed or whatever before getting on flights, I just make sure I'm hanging around the gate. So say if I'm tired for whatever reason, then I'm just in the right spot.
You're asleep at the gate and someone's hopefully going to wake you up if
Yeah.
the flight's getting boarded.
The good thing about Pro League, like from all these other things, I'd learnt like about flipping the sleeping pattern. So I'd done that before I got to Malta.
That's big.
And when I got to Malta, my body, everyone's like, oh, you jet lagged or whatever. I'm like, maybe like I'm like a little bit tired, but I'm not jet lagged. Like my body feels right. And I was going to bed at like a bit after midnight, waking up at the right time. It was also hard to flip it. I was trying to like help Jess out with stuff at home, and like flipping early means we're both on just like different patterns.
Yeah.
There was like even just things like Jess asking me to do stuff during the day, and I'm waking up at like what was it? I was waking up at like 5 p.m. or 4 p.m. or something when there's like not much light left in the day. I'd be like have to wake up and like right do this thing. If like Jess is in the office, then just get it done ASAP while business hours are on, or like just do it in the morning before I go to bed as well. Because I was trying to aim to go to sleep at like 6 a.m. But what I ended up doing is just like whenever Jess woke up, I just go to bed after that. Just so Jess could have like full nights of sleep. I wouldn't wake her up halfway through the night. Yeah. And yeah, Euro time, Malta time is, I can't remember what it is in PST, but it's +8 from us.
+8 from us.
-8. -8 from us.
So it's +2. We're +10.
Is that
or
what it is?
+11.
Yeah, so +2
savings.
Yeah. So yeah, it's 8 hours behind, and that means waking up or going to bed at like 8 a.m. is going to bed at midnight. So it worked out. And yeah, I couldn't sleep on the flight there. I was supposed to sleep on the main flight there. Ended up sleeping on the like secondary flight for a couple of hours. Only had like 4 or 5, but it was enough to
get through.
Yeah, to get through it. And it really annoyed me, because it was the first time on a big international plane, like the big boys.
A380s.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yep.
The 3-4-3 like seating structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing was, I always go window seat because usually you can like lean up against the window with your pillow and shit. But this one had this like gap, this annoyingly large gap between the wall and my seat, so I couldn't actually lean and sleep. And then I tried to like sleep upright and try to all this shit, and yeah, nothing.
Not good.
Yeah,
but when you got there, it was all good.
Yeah, it was good.
You had a good time. I mean, I think what I noticed from you at that event was that, and this will tie into sort of the next part of the conversation as well, is that you were like trying to really be involved, be out there doing the things, clipping the things, being the guy doing the funny thing on the show. Like, obviously that's very you, but I felt like you really tried to amp it up almost at Pro League.
Well, that's what they wanted me for. I think like when I was talking to Joe as well, is like when I watched the last Pro League, it's like it's a fucking family show or whatever was like the tagline, and just the whole setup with the couches. Like we've been on couch shows for the last couple of years at least. Yeah. And that's been like our whole thing is just like on couches, just having fun, doing that sort of thing. So when I was talking to Joe about it in that meeting, I was just mentioning like, what's left for the year, like what could like be opportunities for me or whatever. And like, because I was essentially asking how to get to Europe, where I should live in Europe, what the situation is, learning about how that works, but we can talk about that in a bit. But when it came to like EPL, it was one of the only shows that hadn't had the talent locked in. And I was like, well, EPL is like, it looks like something that fits what I generally do perfectly for like Counter Strike, is a couch show, lots of fun, lots of things external to Counter Strike, and like, but still doing stuff with the players and just, being entertaining on a broadcast. And that's always been like one of my philosophies is like the show needs to be entertaining because it's a show. And if I'm not having a good time, then whoever's watching is probably not having a good time, or they're bored as fuck. If I'm like sitting on a desk and we're talking about something Counter-Strike related, I'm like, this is fucking boring, man. No one wants to hear about that. Yeah. Chances everyone that's watching the show is also feeling that as well. So at those points, I'll try to like change it up or whatever. Anyway, entertainment, big key factor in a broadcast, which is an entertainment product, right? So, moving into this, I was a little bit worried about, how I'd work with all the other talent, like who I was even casting with, like who I'd be working with, what I'd be doing. And yeah, it's just so loose. It was like, all right, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I guess like I prefer to cast, but I'm happy to do literally anything, And then it was like, all right, well, you and Henry can run around and do all the activities for this first bit that we do. And I'd already like in my head, I was like, oh, there's so many beanbags. I could easily do like a flip onto these. And I was going to do a backy. And then Henry was like, oh, he's going to do a front flip. Look, or whatever. And I was like, all right, fucking boom, did it. And that somehow like, actually impressed the hell out of all of them. They're like, you're literally like covered on the broadcast first 5 minutes.
It's kind of fucked up.
Like you're doing like flips and stuff.
I don't know if I would have been able to do.
I come from like
you break your fucking
I come
neck,
from
mate.
I don't know, skate park thing
Sure,
where risk taking's normal. Like I used to do.
Yeah, but not as a 30-year-old.
I'm fit, bro. Like I do a lot of fitness stuff.
Sure.
So I
I think with that you have to send it, right?
flip. I used to do like in high school. I used to do parkour and jump off like 10-meter buildings.
That
and
helps.
Shit. So I'd jump it, doing a little front flip, landing on your backs on a beanbag. Feels like nothing. So
Good.
yeah, my body's still in one piece.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Good for you.
Anyway, so I did shit in high school, right? Lots of dumb stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway, not only that, but yeah, just then I was like very active. Like, you know, maybe you don't know how I am on like other broadcasts, but I'll be like talking to the producer, like, what do you want from me? You know, is this good? Was that good? Do you want more? Do you want less? Blah, blah, blah. Where do I fit? I was just asking a lot, like always talking to the producer, always talking to the like talent manager, or like arguably like with how everything worked, Chad ended up being like Sponge Chad ended up being the guy sort of like making a lot of the decisions of like what goes where and how to run a show. Ended up working on the whiteboards. So like a lot of it was just like talking with him, like getting used to everyone, getting comfortable with like what they want to do, what they like and shit. And then, yeah, just like not stepping on toes. There's also like not a lot of time at the end of the days or start of the days to really like hang out and do that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of time in the green room to sort of just chill and talk and that as well while the games were going. Also then just like coming up with little bits, little like filler content, just like talking to someone, be like, oh, you know, like I think it was like Hugo's idea probably, where it was like, oh, because CS2 came out. So when CS2 came out on like the second day of Pro League, definitely took away from Pro League. But the best thing you can do, right, is like do some content with CS2 and be like, let's start doing some CS2 stuff for this, blah, 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 talk about it a lot. And one of the big things Hugo was saying was, oh, look, let's just like jump into Ancient on Go, jump into Ancient on CS2, look at like how this works here, like what's different here. I think Inferno had just come out, so we did a lot of like looking at the differences on Inferno as like direct side by side on a broadcast live and cool little smoke lineups or flashes or little intricacies that are different that people are already talking about on Reddit and shit. So that was like a lot of the filler content was like CS2 related, which I wouldn't say like made me sad at all, but like, you know, like just not the actual content part, but the CS2 getting released and then being overseas, not being able to play it when everyone's getting it and shit. Yeah. But just like, I think a thing that annoyed a few people was like every other EPL, when you're doing fun stuff or cool stuff happens, it gets clipped, it gets put on Reddit, it gets put on socials, right? Yep. That's getting overshadowed by CS2. That's completely overshadowed by CS2. So I felt like, well, no one, like, not no one's really watching, but like it feels like less people are watching or whatever. Yep. So I'm just going harder as long as I'm not pushing like boundaries with people. Yeah. And then, you know, it was like a okay to swear kind of broadcast as well. I'd like, you know, swear a little bit, just like let it flow out a bit more naturally than we would on a normal broadcast where it's like, I just don't swear. And I saw people even commenting on it online, like, oh, Mac's swearing a lot. What's going on? But like, I probably swore the most out of everyone, but everyone was swearing. But I'd ask the producers, I'm like Jacko and stuff as well, because this is also the other thing. Jacko is a project manager of ESL Pro League now, which is bigger than Challenger, but he like took a little step up the food chain because something went down, and that's also potentially half of the reason why I'm probably on the product, because I've known him for ages, and I think he liked what I did on Challenger and stuff. Yep. So that's probably part of the reason why I like got Pro League. But yeah, it's also like shooting your shot, right? Like you got to get there, you got to perform. I think the other thing as well that I tried to do at Pro League was, I remember you saying when you went to Dallas for Pro League finals or whatever, you felt a little bit left out overall because...
Yeah, I think it was hard because I was pretty young at the time. Yeah. So a little bit socially inept, maybe. Yeah. Is a good way of putting it. But so it's hard to like fit in.
Yeah, maybe that, but also like I felt like you said at a point that you never really like reached out to try to be like, hey guys, what are we doing? Or like anything like that. Yeah. So I definitely used that as a lesson.
Because it was too, I mean, from my perspective, again, like as a young guy, it's like you don't know how to talk to people properly. You know what I mean?
Of course. You were like, what, like 20 something at that point?
I think I was, just 21 maybe. Just turned 21.
And I think like you had a different upbringing.
It was like my first big event, right? You know. Yeah.
You were more of like a League of Legends player, like doing some stuff behind
so
the scenes.
I was definitely out of my depth.
Whereas I was 21 out drinking.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't a drinker. Yeah. I was not a drinker at 21.
I grew up in like, I'd say a more normal Australian culture. Like pub.
Yeah,
pub
no, I was never
culture.
Never. You wouldn't see me in a pub.
Yeah, so I think that's
at 21.
That's
definitely
the difference.
Not. Yeah.
So I was like, better at talking to people now.
Yeah.
And also, anyway, just
But you're a lot older and confident, and that kind of thing. That helps a lot.
Using that lesson, like when I was over here, I'm like, well, I'm not here to fuck spiders, I'm here to make friends, make connections, do a good job. So I took that into account, and I was like, there'd be nights where like I could tell things were happening, so I'd just be like messaging people, like, oh, where are we? Like, what are you doing or whatever, just making sure I wasn't like missing out on having a couple of beers with people or just like chilling out with people and stuff like that. But also not trying to be the guy where, you're just sitting there awkwardly in the corner.
Yeah.
You don't want to just like push in if you're not going to have anything to say.
That's the worst.
Got a couple of those in esports. And if you get that vibe, like I just don't want to be that guy, right?
No.
So, yeah, I just like, pick your battles. They're not battles, but pick where you want to be. And yeah, just try and be memorable. And I think I did. Like I was constantly like hunting for feedback from everyone there, including all the talent. And they're like, you have nothing to worry about. Like, we love what you do. Like, you have so much personality and you're bringing it to the broadcast. And it's just like, it was just fun. Like, they were like, we just have so much fun. Like, when we're casting with you as well, you're not too scared to like jump in. I think the other thing was like, even in the first week, I think Chad gave me like less to do in terms of like all these like extra segments and stuff. And then moving into the second week, I was just like, after the first week, I was like, oh yeah, I was just trying to like not step on toes or whatever. But I feel like I was definitely a bit underutilized in the first week. I could do more.
You could do more,
like, I did a lot of casting in the first week, which is probably why they didn't use me on like the other camera stuff.
Right.
But I was just like I'm here only for one more week, and I know you guys still have like 5 weeks or 4 weeks to burn through, and I don't want you guys to burn out. So just get me doing whatever, man. Like get me doing fun stuff, dumb stuff, fucking actual content, CS2 stuff. Like I'm an open book. I can do a lot. So
fair enough.
And then did a bit more in the second week. And that was that. That was only like 2 weeks ago now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Had a good time. And now we're kind of caught up to date with pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Right? And by the time this releases, which will hopefully be out tomorrow, like nothing else will have happened. So there was just a couple of miscellaneous topics right at the end there that I wanted to sort of touch on. And you kind of even did there with that whole Malta experience, talk about like developing your broadcast presence and your brand and what you're doing and why that's important and stuff like that. But I just kind of want to know is like, is it a conscious thing? Is Macmate, the broadcast persona, a conscious thing? Or are you doing what you do normally? I mean, I already know the answer kind of personally, but just for the people watching.
It's like a little bit normal, but it's definitely like it's over exaggerated when I'm on camera. Like I think I remember when I first started to like do streaming and shit, right? Or like even be a talent. What I thought of, so I used to have this persona when I was like really drunk when I was young, and I call him Sven. Okay. And it was just like, I'd just be like, oh, I'm Sven, and I'd just go and do dumb shit and like fun shit, not necessarily like hurting other people stuff, but just, just like dance like a fucking idiot on the dance floor or like do the worm or, run around like a fucking idiot.
Be Sven.
Yeah, just be Sven, right? And then I just sort of like channeled that energy into like my broadcast persona, right? And I think that like was just more me, but more confident is what it ended up being. Because like obviously like liquid confidence with alcohol and shit, which is, it's kind of like dark to think about now, but that is sort of where like it came from. And then eventually as I got more and more confident on camera and more confident in myself, I was able just to like unleash more and yeah. And then over time, like just generally getting better at doing the job of commentary, but bringing that into being me. I don't know. That's, mental gymnastics to get your head around that one. But yeah, just a lot of fun.
I feel like it's kind of snowballed though, right? Like when I first met you and when you first started doing broadcasts, like you were still kind of like, I feel like not going out there quite as much.
Oh, definitely
for the first year or two sort of thing. Has it been something that you've like worked on, or not necessarily worked on, but obviously as you've gotten more comfortable, it's like snowballed a little bit? And have you sort of grappled with knowing where the line is to not go across it, or to just go across it but not too far?
Yeah, but that's why like producers are my line, right? Or like the idea of whoever the TO is my line. And I could probably always do more, or like go harder, probably, without crossing like political correctness lines and shit. Like that's different. That's my line.
That's not what I'm talking about, really.
Yeah. I know, but like that's what I'm saying. Like, because you watch me, like people are like, oh, he's so like over the top. Oh, he's so you know like flamboyant, but also like I push. He's like, oh, he pushes too many boundaries. He's like unhinged or whatever. It's like I don't have to be. If you tell me to like just rein it back, it's more of a chill broadcast. Be a bit funny, but don't swear, don't go crazy. Like I
Yep.
adhere to the boundaries. That's why I always ask the questions and shit. But if there's like TOs out there that watched my shit on Pro League and they're like, oh, he swore a lot. Damn, we can't use him.
Yeah.
It's like, but that's because
That's-
the product
yeah.
told me just do that. That's what the people are enjoying. You know, you're having fun with that shit. You know, you're doing all these like innuendos and shit on stream and everyone's laughing. You know, and
Yeah.
like that's something that I feel like is like moderately enjoyable, and for the viewer as well as for like us too, because you sort of like you don't get to do that every day.
Yeah.
You don't get to do that on every show, and like I'm sure if there's like other shows coming up that need to be more professional, I can be more professional. You know, that's just
Yep.
part of the job, and I feel like that's why I'm like super confident in my performance and super confident in, you know, my persona as well, is that I know that I can be this, but I can also be this.
Yeah.
Like I understand what's needed to make the show as good as possible, and that's what I try to like, you know, bend the knee to.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what about your fitness? Obviously, that's something that I think as time has gone on has become more and more important to you as well. Like when I can't remember exactly when you first really started going gym. You were always sort of going to the gym.
I've always been
right?
fit.
But like,
Mostly.
yeah, but you got to a point where you were like really into it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I
and that's
know
probably
when
been
that
only
was.
the last like 2 years or so.
No, it's about 4 years now.
4
It was
years.
2019.
Right.
But like I used to play high level like country rugby league,
Right.
like for like competitive stuff. Like I've always been competitive. I've always been fit since I was fat when I was 11 and 12 when I really got into like Nintendo 64 and shit.
Okay.
And like just big nerd. Like all my friends were nerds. Then went to high school, and I think under 12s was the first year I played footy, like rugby league, and got really good at that. But I also like was essentially like this height when I was in year like 7 or 8. So I had like an early growth spurt, like was pretty big like genetically for a while. But then once it got to like under 16s, then everyone else was like hitting puberty and they'd be like a
Yeah.
foot on me or like extra fucking 30 kilos on me. Like I'd still be able to like compete. But when you get to the point where like you got like full rugby league teams, like under 16 rep teams and stuff looking at you, they're like, he's like 5'11", like 80 kilos. You know, he's not
Yeah.
6'7" and
smash him.
fucking 120 kilos. Like he's not going to live. Whereas in my head, I'm like, well, I could, but you know, you guys like look at the genetics and like what I can bring to the table. It's just not it. So that was like the end of that. I did like bodyboarding, lots of skateboarding, scooter riding and shit, just skate park shit. Going into uni, then through uni, did like a little bit of weightlifting. Yeah, a little bit of weightlifting and fitness through the first couple of years. Then did a lot of drinking through like the later years of uni, just like party stuff. Then went to America for a little bit. Went to the gym when I was in America in like Silicon Valley, some really nice one that the company paid for, which was fucking hectic, by the way. So a little bit of fitness there. Then when I came back, was doing a lot of running for a while. Didn't really do too much weightlifting. And all through esports. Yeah, when I got into esports was also around the same time. Like when I got into commentary, rather, it was about the same time I met Jess.
Yep.
So I was with Jess for ages. But that was when like that HSP thing, like everyone started getting heaps into HSPs for a bit.
Sure.
I was very into HSPs, and then like
Okay.
moving to Sydney, it was also one of the cheaper foods to eat.
Yep.
So I was eating just like really good, really yummy fast food, and like there's a lot of that around here, but very unhealthy.
Yep.
And then it was only when I was on, like looking at the photos, because I'd never really got photos at any of these events, right? And then it was only when we got the photos from like IEM 2019. I think I had like a bit of a double chin going on,
Yep.
and just like a bit of a rounder face and stuff. And I was just like, I really don't look like what I look like on broadcast.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me to be like, all right, I'm just going to go a bit harder in the gym. And I'd also, at that point, I think IEM, I was still in Lidcombe, like at the old place.
Yep.
And after that is when we moved in with like Turtle and stuff.
Yep.
And Turtle was heavily into the gym. So him going to the gym, I started going to the gym way more often, like whatever hours of the night and shit. Just
Yep.
full degenerate, but you know, got me there. And yeah, and then ever since then, I've just been like going
That's
to the
like your
gym,
thing almost.
learning, you know, staying fit, and you just feel so much better. Like, I feel better physically and mentally, and then like it was also something that helped a lot. Like after like Simon passed away too, so yeah, I feel like, just staying physically fit and keeps the mental strong. And also just, trying to look as good as possible on camera is like the other goal too, right? Like I'm not trying to do like a fucking marathon or anything. I'm literally lifting just to look better on camera. And
I don't think
stay
lifting
sane.
will help you do a marathon anyway.
Nah, but
So-
yeah, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm not lifting to do a
Not lifting to be a heavy, what's the word? Like a bodybuilder.
not a powerlifter,
Powerlifter, yeah.
or a bloody actual bodybuilder
You just
doing
wanna look
stage
good.
shows or anything. Just look
Yeah.
good enough, feel good.
Fair enough.
Yeah, stay
Yeah.
confident.
All right. Well, to wrap it up, what's your goal for casting? Because I think this is something that maybe you'll look back on in 5 years or 10 years or whatever. So I want
Yeah.
you to think about in 10 years, if you look at this, what will the 10-year version of you think? I've made it. If you get what you say now done.
Yeah. Well, look, I think the goal ideally would be like just a mainstay talent in Europe. Would like for CS right now. I feel like CS is more the focus now
It'll
that
be CS2.
CS2 is coming out.
Yeah.
If for like I don't see a world where I get offered anything for Valorant like big. Like I was trying to get on like the VCTs and stuff, but if they don't even think I'm a caster. They think I'm a host. So I don't know how much space there is for me to jump into that when like that's not even really what I want to do ideally. But yeah, for what I want to do, mainstay talent somewhere in Europe. Don't know who I'm doing it with, but just get over there's the goal and try to be somewhat relevant for a while. Just hopefully make enough to make it like to own a house somewhere. To live a life for a little bit. And then, figure out where to from there. But yeah, I got a lot more to do. So that's about that. Also would be, you've been trying to get me to do one of these for a while.
I have.
Yeah. But I keep thinking, I don't want to do it. I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it's taken so long.
But I want
one
to
of
do
these.
it before you go overseas.
Yeah.
Then then we've got a part 4
True.
in 2 years.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Something like that.
An extra hour on top.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wasting time. Wasting time.
Hey guys, just at the end of this video, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Jean, who is my first supporter on buymeacoffee.com. If you'd also like to support me financially or any of my content, make sure to check out the link. It is in the description box below.